Hi and welcome to another story, and today we have part 5 of Secrets by Jacqueline Wilson, continuing from chapter 9, Treasure. Well, the really truly great thing in my life is that I have a best friend, India. She came calling for me. We went indoors and played with little Brittany until Loretta took her round to her friend's flat. Then India and I mucked around with crayons and stickers and glitter, making pictures with Patsy. We didn't really want to play with her, but we couldn't leave her out. Patsy drew a little house with 3 curtained windows and a door with a knocker and a letterbox. She coloured them in very carefully with a bright yellow sun shining above them. She did a strip of blue at the top of her picture for sky and a strip of green grass at the bottom, patterned with a neat row of pink daisies. She stuck a sticker bunny in the grass and a sticker bluebird flying past her sun. She inked "My Home" in silver gold pen in the top and then sat back with a big smile. "But our home isn't a bit like that," I said. "All right," said Patsy, unfazed. "It can be the bunny's home." "Ah, bless her," said Nan, throwing chips in the pan with a sizzle. I made sick noises. Patsy's okay, but I can't stick it when she goes all twee and babyish. "Bunny's home, indeed." Now," said Nan, putting her hand over my mouth. "If you're going to be sick, go and do it in the toilet, Miss Treasure." She rested her chin on my head. "Oh, darling," she said, seeing my picture, her arms wrapped around me properly. I'd drawn a dark, horrible home. Down at the bottom of my paper, all scribbly, black lines, with a tiny woman and some kids like little beetles, and a much bigger cartoon ape man called going stamp, stamp, stamp all over them. Then I'd drawn a ladybird girl in a red fleecy coat flying up into a new brightly coloured home at the top of a multi-storey block of flats. I'd emptied practically the whole of Patsy's glitter on the 4th flat of the 14th floor. "That's lovely, Treasure," said Nan, giving me another hug. Then she had a peer at India's picture. She'd drawn a very tall, thin house that took up the whole of her paper. "You live in a big house, darling," said Nan, trying to act like she wasn't dead impressed. I peered at it too, wondering why she'd drawn some kind of sinister army marching along outside. There was a river too, though we're nowhere near the Thames. "It's not my home," said India. "It's Anne Frank's house." "Who's Anne, sweetheart?" said Nan. India looked astonished. "Don't you know who Anne Frank is?" she said. She didn't mean to be rude, but it came out that way. Her posh little voice didn't help. "Sorry, dear, I don't," said Nan, going pink. She didn't sound sorry. She sounded dead snippy. My tummy went tight. I couldn't stand it if Nan took against India. But it was okay. India had gone pink too. She said quickly and humbly, "Oh, I'm ever so sorry, Mrs. Mitchell." "Rita," said Nan once again. "It's just that Anne Frank is my all-time heroine. She was this Jewish girl who hid from the Nazis in Holland during the war." And then I got it. The long, thin Dutch house and the canal and the scary soldiers. I peered more closely at India's picture and saw the top of the house was turned into a hidey hole. You could just see Anne through the window, writing in a little red notebook. "Her diary," said India reverently. "I keep a diary," I said, and then I blushed in case it sounded stupid. I hope Willie didn't hear. I'd hate it if he leafed through this and had a right laugh at me. Patsy was too busy shaking glitter over her picture to take in what I was saying. Her bunny was rapidly turning into Rhinestone Rabbit. "I keep a diary too," said India, and then she blushed. "You girls," said Nan. "Well, I don't keep a diary. I'm not confiding my secrets to anyone." India went on telling us about Anne Frank for ages, until, to be honest, we were all a little bit sick of her. It got more interesting when India started going on about Anne and her parents, and this boy Peter who hid in the secret annex with them. Anne falls in love with him at the end of the book, and he's her boyfriend. India sighed heavily when she read this. "He doesn't seem worthy of her," she said. "Still, it wasn't as if she really had any choice stuck in the annex." "Yes, she did. She could choose not to have a boyfriend at all," I said. "Do you have a boyfriend, Treasure?" "No way, I can't stick boys." "Well, Willie's okay, I suppose. He does let me borrow his bike, and he lets me wear his Tommy Hilfiger sweatshirt. It's not even an old one. It's one he often wears himself, but when I said I thought it looked great, he just took it off and shoved it over my head." "Looks great on you too, little Trez," he said. "It looks literally great, way down to my knees, but I kind of like the baggy look. I kind of like Willie too, but that's okay because he's family. I'm never ever going to get a boyfriend. My mum would be great if it wasn't for her blankety blank boyfriends, especially Terry. I'm so scared. It's Saturday tomorrow. Mum phoned up again last night to say they really are coming to get me. Nan took the phone and told Mum she was talking rubbish. "No, I am not," said Mum. "I've consulted a solicitor, see? He says there's no question. Treasure's mine and she belongs here with me." "But that animal you live with whipped her with his belt," Nan exploded. "No, he never. And anyway, even if he did, which he didn't, you've no proof. Now listen, if you don't hand Treasure over when we come for her, we're getting a court order." You can get the Queen herself to command me. I don't give a stuff, said Nan, tucking me tight under her arm. No one's taking my treasure away. Let's just ask her what she wants. It's what the courts say. We've got a foolproof case. I'm her mother, said Mum. And I'm your mother. God help me, and I just want to do what's best for your child, said Nan. Now look, Rita. It was Terry suddenly speaking. I shrunk back, pressing my head into Nan's soft chest so I couldn't hear him. I just heard the buzz of his voice. He wasn't shouting. He didn't sound drunk. He was using his wheedling, I'm a really nice guy tone, but he's often like that just before he pounces. Nan wasn't fooled. Her nose wrinkled like there was a terrible smell as he whined and whinged into her ear. I am being reasonable, Terry, she said. You're the guy who can't keep his belt buckled. Terry's voice buzzed louder, like he was threatening her. Nan stood firm, but she started to shiver, even though the heatings always turned full up on the flat. What? What's he saying, Nan? What is it? She patted me on the shoulder to keep me quiet. Then she drew in her breath sharply. It wasn't murder. Even the cops knew that. It was an accident. Don't you dare talk about my Pete like that, she said, and she slammed the phone down. I waited. I was shivering too. Nan held me tight, but she didn't speak. When I looked up, there were tears glistening on the end of her eyelashes. Oh, Nan. Now, it's okay, Treasure. I'm getting in a silly tiz over nothing. Don't take any notice of silly old Nan. You promise I can still stay with you. I promise, she said, but she didn't look me in the eyes. I caught her by the cheeks and tilted her head. Nan, look, I'm not a little kid. You're the littlest kid ever, said Nan, barely bigger than Brittany. Tears were spilling down her cheeks now. Did Terry say he'd get you, Nan? It's not that, Pet. I'd like to see him try. No, it's just something he said about you living here with my Pete. I didn't understand. But he's not here, I said delicately. Yes, I know, Pet, but he's only got another 6 months to go if he gets his good behaviour taken into consideration. And Pete's no fool. He's sweet as pie to everyone, so he can get right back to his family as soon as possible. That's what that wicked Terry is on about. He says these social worker busybodies won't let you stay with me, not with a guy who's got a lot of previous and a 5 stretch for manslaughter. He was even saying they'll think about taking Patsy into care, but that's ludicrous. He's her father. Well, he's my grandfather. Not really, Treasure, not by blood. I suddenly feel like I've been left one side of a mountain range and Nan and Pete and Loretta and baby Brittany and Willie and Patsy are all on the other side. There's no way I can leap over to be with them. I'm stuck all by myself, and Terry's climbing up after me, my side of the mountain. We'll tell on him. We'll show my scar, I said. Yes, we can try, my love, but remember what we said up at the hospital, that you got hurt about after a game with your brother and sister. It'll be hard to go back on that in court. So do you think they'll really take us to court, Nan? No, darling. I'm sure Terry's just trying to scare us, said Nan. All this solicitor talk. I bet they're bluffing. So, are they still coming tomorrow? Or is it a bluff too? I asked, trying to stop my voice going squeaky. I'm not sure, sweetheart, said Nan. But never you mind. You don't even have to be here. I'm not having you traumatised by that pig all over again. Yes, that's it, my pet. You can have a day out. Maybe up to town, eh? You leave it to Nan. Don't look so tragic. You're not to worry. I can't help it. It feels like I've swallowed a whole hive of bees, and they're all buzzing inside my stomach. I can't sleep. I'm scared of sleeping, because every time I start dreaming, Terry jumps out at me, and he's whirling that belt, going crack, crack, crack with it like a whip. I wake with such a start, and each time I tell myself it's okay. It's just a bad dream. But then I remember Terry, and it isn't a dream, but real. And he's coming to get me. He's acting all soft and sweet like he really loves me and wants me back, but I know just what will happen once he gets me behind closed doors. Chapter 10. India. Dear Kitty, I woke up early this morning and sat cross-legged on my bed writing my diary. Every time I wrote my friend's name, Treasure, I spread it out in a very careful, twirly, fancy lettering and highlighted it in gold until page after page glowed. Then I realised I was starving, so I padded downstairs to fix myself some breakfast. I just made myself a most interesting jumbo sandwich, a layer of banana, cream cheese and honey, and then another contrasting layer of chocolate spread and peach slices, when Mum came bursting into the kitchen, startling me so that I dropped a bottle of milk all over the floor. For goodness sake, India, do you have to be so clumsy? She said, leaping about with paper towels and kitchen cloths. And what exactly are you eating? Just a sandwich? It looks more like an entire loaf of bread to me, said Mum, mopping. You don't seem to be taking your diet very seriously, India. She pointedly put 2 lemons into the blender. Mum's breakfast. She always goes on and on about my diet, as if my size is the only significant thing about me. The blender rattled away. Mum looked at me. Maybe she was wondering if she could stuff me in, along with the lemons, and squeeze me right down to the pulp. I doubt I'd fit into a Moya Upton outfit even then. I took a large defiant bite of my sandwich, smacking my lips. Mum sighed and switched off the blender. She poured her juice and drank it up. Her cheeks sucked in a little at the sourness, but she'd rather die than add a little sugar. I think you're anorexic, Mum, I said. Don't be ridiculous. I just care about my body. It's time you took a little care of yourself too, India, now you're growing up. She said the words growing up with extreme emphasis, as if I was shooting straight up to the ceiling and spreading till I could touch all the walls at once. Roll up to see the incredible growing girl, 20 metres high, 1,000 kilos, and rapidly increasing. It's pretty humiliating when your own mother treats you like a circus freak. You'll term me anorexic if you carry on nagging me about my weight, I said, bolting the last of my sandwich. Mum gave this horrible, false, tickly laugh. That'll be the day. She said it spitefully, as sour as her lemon juice. I turned my back on her, opening the fridge up, pretending to be searching for more food. I didn't want her to see the tears in my eyes. India. What? I said, as rudely as I dared, my head still in the fridge. I wondered if my tears would turn into tiny stalactites if I stayed there long enough. I'm sorry, sweetie. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, she said softly. Well, as soft as she gets. She didn't mean to hurt my feelings. She expects it to feel like fun when your own mother implies you're gross. I felt like I was growing a frosty mask inside the fridge. She was sorry for me now. Well, I could tell her straight. Don't feel sorry for me, Mum. Feel sorry for yourself. Everyone hates you. Even Dad prefers Wanda to you. I wouldn't say it, but thinking it made me feel better. I straightened up and smiled calmly at my mother. I'm fine, Mum, really. What are your plans for today, darling? She said, sitting on a kitchen stool and crossing one leg, elegant, tanned, hairless leg, over the other. She wears matching silk nighties and negligees in subtle, strange colours, inky blue with pink lace, forest green with turquoise lace, coffee with tangerine lace. And I used to love her nighties. I liked sneaking into Mum's bedroom and dressing up in their silky softness, playing at being a princess. I couldn't stick wearing anything of Mum's now. Well, they wouldn't fit anyway. Mum's always wants me to have plans. She can't even let me drift through the day doing just what I feel like. She has the engagement diary approach to life. She'd like every half hour of my day filled in. I shrugged and mumbled something about homework. Oh, darling, you and your homework, she said, as if it's my personal eccentricity. She is the only mother in my class who really doesn't care about her daughter's marks. She seems to find it vaguely embarrassing when I come top. And I'm going to read this new book about Anne Frank. I know Anne Frank's story is very moving, India, but don't you think it's a little morbid being so obsessed by her? No, I think it's perfectly normal. She's my hero, my inspiration. Mum gave a little snort. She was laughing at me. I tried to think of the frost in the fridge, but I couldn't stop my face turning beetroot red. Well, I'm going to get into my running things, said Mum, swallowing the last of her lemon. She put her head on one side. I don't suppose you'd care to join me? I bared my teeth in a grin to make it plain I knew she was joking. Maybe we can go shopping together when I get back, said Mum. I think she must have read some article about high-powered career mums spending quality time with their daughters, but I hate shopping with Mum. I like shopping, so long as it's my way. Wanda and I go to Woolworths or Wilkinson's, where everything is bright and cheap, and we play the games, seeing how many things we can buy for a fiver. I like choosing girly notebooks with pink checks, and puppies, and gel pens, and peachy sweet scent, and little floppy toy animals, and lots of pick and mix sweets. Then we go to McDonald's, and I have a McFlurry, and if it goes down too quickly, I'll have another. And maybe even another if Wanda is in a truly good mood. Sadly, she hasn't been in a good mood for ages. I wonder if I should try talking to her, try to comfort her maybe, because this thing with Dad seems to be making her so unhappy. It makes me feel unhappy thinking about her and Dad. If I didn't love him, I think maybe I'd hate him the way I hate Mum. I don't really hate her. Yes, I do. I certainly hate her when we're shopping together. We nearly always have to go to the places that stock Moira Upton clothes. She has a sneaky check on the stock. The sales girls generally twig who she is and go into her Twitter. There's often a rich mother with some horrible, pretty, skinny daughter trying on the latest little Moira Upton number, and they go all squeaky when they're introduced to Mum. Sometimes they get her to do the dumbest stuff, like sign her own label. All the time they're admiring Mum. Their eyes keep swivelling around to me as if they can't believe that I can possibly be her daughter. I sometimes long to be an orphan. Mum came back into the kitchen in her tiny grey jogging suit. She waggled her manicured nails at me and then darted off at the back door. She looked like a sleek, slim rat, whiskers well-shaved, eyes bright and beady. This does not sound flattering, I know, but if I was squeezed into her grey jogging suit and other obvious animal springs, no lumbers into my mind's eye, It is gross to compare your mother to a rodent. It is even grosser to know that she thinks of you as an elephant. Not just your mother. Lots and lots and lots of people make pachyderm remarks when I'm around. Maybe it's not so bad. Elephants are intelligent animals. They are meant to have superb memories. It sounds like boasting, but my own memory is phenomenal. I can quote long passages of Anne's diary by heart now. I shall lend it to Treasure because I just know she'll love it too. I reread a few favourite parts while I ate another little breakfast. I discovered Wanda's Pop-Tarts tucked at the back of the larder. She seems to have lost her appetite recently, but mine is ever present. Then I wrote more of my own diary. Wanda was up by this time, yawning and sighing. "What's up, Wanda?" She looked at me, shrugged, and flicked her long wet hair out of her face, making a tiny rainstorm over her shoulders. "Is it Dad?" She jumped as if I'd shot at her. "No. What do you mean? Are those my Pop-Tarts you're eating? Stop it, you greedy girl. Your dad. Why should I be upset about your dad?" "It's definitely my dad." She drifted off, saying she was going to dry her hair. I heard her going mutter-mutter upstairs with Dad. Then 5 minutes later, Dad bounded into the kitchen all wired up, clicking his fingers and tutting his tongue against his cheek. He came out with all this rough stuff about poor Wanda being homesick. Do they think I'm mad? I know what's going on. I think they're mad. Dad liked Wanda's friend Susie a lot more than Wanda herself. Everyone could see that at the New Year's Eve party, even Wanda. And what is she doing getting mixed up with my dad? He's old enough to be her dad too. I don't understand love affairs. I'm not ever going to make a fool of myself that way. I'm so glad Treasure hasn't got a boyfriend. I don't want one either. I hope we'll stay friends until we're grown up, and then we could maybe share a flat together. I wonder what Treasure wants to be when she grows up. I want to be a writer. Of course, just like Anne. It would be great if my books became big hits so that I don't have to use a penny of Mum and Dad's money. Yes, I shall earn all my own money, heaps of it, and then even if Treasure doesn't have a well-paid job, it won't matter a bit because I could take care of the rent. If my books don't sell well, it won't really matter. We could make do with a very modest flat. We could maybe even rent one on the Latimer estate. Then Treasure's family could come and visit every day. I don't think I want my family to visit at all. Not even Dad. He hates the Latimer estate. We drove through it after lunch. I was feeling sick. Dad said he'd take me out to lunch, just us two. Anyway, anywhere I wanted. I was thrilled he was in a good mood for once. I thought hard, trying to think of the perfect place. I thought Dad would like somewhere really fancy and sophisticated. I remember this lovely Italian place we went to once on Mum's birthday. "Let's go to La Terrazza," I said. "Oh, for God's sake, India," Dad shouted. It was the worst choice ever. I hadn't realised it was terribly expensive. Dad went on and on about it, asking if I thought he was made of money. He thought I'd choose McDonald's like any other kid, maybe Pizza Express if I was pushing it. But La Terrazza was ridiculous. Still, he'd said I could go anywhere, so fine, right. Never let it be said that he couldn't keep his word. I was practically in tears by this time. I told him that I didn't really want to go to La Terrazza, and I'd love to go to McDonald's, but Dad wouldn't drop it. He took me to La Terrazza, and I chose the dish of the day because it was supposed to be a bargain. It was a seafood spaghetti dish that looked horribly like cooked worms and slugs. I pretended it was delicious. I said I was having a lovely time. I told Dad he was wonderful, giving me such a treat. Dad ate lots too, and he drank a bottle of wine. I thought we'd leave the car outside the restaurant and get a taxi back home, but Dad opened the car door, gesturing for me to get inside. I didn't know what to do. I knew he shouldn't be driving after all that drink. He'd also had a brandy, while I struggled with 3 scoops of ice cream. But I didn't dare say anything in case he got mad again. He cheered up now. He said I was his little princess, the number one girl in his life. So the number one girl got in the car and crossed her fingers and prayed. He drove carefully enough, singing Cod Pavarotti arias. "Oh, la terrazza, all the waiters are prazza. We'll give them no tips. Why, we can't eat chips." I laughed as if I thought he was the funniest man ever, peering out of the window as we drove through the Latimer estate. I looked out for Treasure. I wanted to tell Dad all about her, but I knew it wouldn't work. One of the skateboarding boys swooped dangerously close to our car, only just jumping off in time, his skateboard going clunk against our bumper. Dad braked furiously and leapt out of the car. He shouted at the boy. The boy shouted something much ruder back and stuck his finger up in the air before running away. While Dad was angrily examining his scratched paintwork, Mrs. Watkins, who lives next door to Treasure's nan, came shuffling past, her weird grown-up son loping along beside her, swinging their plastic bags. "Watch them bags, Michael. Don't bash them like that," she grumbled. "Sorry, Mum," Michael said meekly, but when he saw me sitting in the car, he stuck his tongue out and waggled it behind his mother's back. I smiled politely. Dad looked up, frowning at both of us. He got back in the car, slamming the door. What a stinky dumping ground this is, he said, driving away. Foul-mouthed little vandals and total nutters. They should all be locked up. I wish we didn't live so close by. I wondered what Dad would say if he knew I'd been to tea here with my best friend. I was desperate to see her again, but I knew it was better to bide my time. When we got back home, Wanda greeted us wistfully, asking all about the meal. I felt bad, wishing Dad had invited her too. Mum was out again. She'd left a note to say she'd gone to an art exhibition with Bella, Miranda's mum. Big belly button, said Dad, crumpling up the note. Bella isn't really big. She's got a lovely figure, and her belly is as flat as a pancake. But Dad always acts like she looks awful. Maybe he tried to chat her up once, and she wasn't interested. I quite like chatting to Bella myself, because she treats me like a real person, and she doesn't always seem to be sniggering up her sleeve at me. I'd have normally been hurt that they hadn't asked me along too. I'd been wanting to find out how Miranda is getting on at boarding school, but now I couldn't give two hoots. I'm not bothered about boring old Miranda anymore. I don't think she ever really wanted to be my friend. Anyway, I've got a much, much, much better friend now, and with Mum out of the way, maybe I could sneak out to see her. Dad said he had to catch up with some figure work and went off to his study. Wanda trailed along after him, wondering if she could help. Wanda, who can't even count her change properly. Dad screwed up his face and sighed at her, so he sloped off looking mournful. I don't know what she sees in him. I waited half an hour racing through my weekend homework. To while away the time, I heard clinking and a little glug 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 sound from Dad's study. He was having even more to drink. He'd be seeing double when he looked at those figures. I hovered in the hall. I heard Wanda in the living room whispering on the phone. I hope she was talking to all her relatives in Australia. Served Dad right if he had to pay a massive bill. I walked heavily up the stairs to my room in case Dad and Wanda were listening, and then tiptoed down a minute later, so softly, right along the hall and out the front door. I shut it behind me very slowly so that it clicked shut with scarcely a sound. I stood outside in my own driveway, took a deep breath, and then set out for the Latimer estate. Treasure would be so surprised. I'd thought I'd only be able to see her after school, but now there seemed to be no reason at all why I couldn't slip away at the weekend, too, whenever I had the chance. Treasure wasn't in the grounds, on her bike. I asked one of the skateboarding boys if he'd seen Treasure, but he just shrugged. At least he didn't call names after me. I looked more normal in my Saturday jeans and sweatshirt and jacket, all from Gap. Absolutely not Moira Upton. I was dying to show Treasure I didn't always look like I've stepped straight out of the twins at St. Clair's. I opted for the stair route, so I was breathless by the time I got to Treasure's landing. I hurried past Mrs. Watkins and Mumbly Michael's flat and knocked on Treasure's door. Her grandma answered it. She looked different, older somehow, and her hair was all tousled, as if she'd been running her fingers through it. "Oh, it's you, India," she said, obviously barely remembering my name. "Can I see Treasure?" She swallowed, glancing behind her. "She's not here, pet. She's gone out with the other kids." "Oh, well, do you know when she'll be back?" She looked anxious and shook her head. Someone was shouting inside her flat. Some man. You'd better run back home, dear," Nan said. This man suddenly came out into the hall, a horrible man, in a check shirt and black jeans, his dirty blonde hair all greasy and flopping over his forehead. His eyes were green and glacial. "Who are you?" he said, glaring at me. I knew who he was. Terry, Treasure's stepfather, the one who marked her face. I looked at his waist. There was the belt. I saw the buckle and shivered. "It's just a little girl from up Parkfield," said Nan. She nodded at me. "Off you go, pet." But the belt man stepped forward. "Are you a pal of Treasure's, eh?" I nodded. "So where is she then?" "I don't know." Of course she doesn't know, Terry. She thought she was here. Or maybe Treasure sent her to see if me and her mum had cleared off yet, said Terry. He suddenly seized me by the shoulders. "Leave that kid alone, Terry," said Nan sharply. He loosened his grip a little. "You're sure you don't know where Treasure is?" I shook my head, trying to act like he couldn't scare me. "Let her go," said Nan. "I'm not doing anything to her," said Terry. He put his head close to mine. "Well, listen here, sweetheart. You tell your little pal Treasure she's to stop playing us up and come on home. She's making her mum poorly. You tell her, right?" I'll tell her if I see her," I said, wriggling my shoulders free. "That's it, lovey. You scoot off home," said Nan. I ran all the way home. I forgot to be cautious going back. Dad heard the front door and came out into the hall. "India?" He blinked at me, looking fuddled. "Have you been out?" "Yes, but just to the shop on the corner." Dad's face cleared. "Ah, chocolate. Don't tell Mum when she comes back, will you?" He grinned and put his fingers to his lips. "Your secret is safe with me." He slurred the S's a bit, but I pretended not to notice he was drunk. Dad frightens me sometimes now because he's so moody, but he's nowhere near as scary as Terry. Poor, poor Treasure. I'm so scared for her. And that is where we will leave part 5 of Secrets by Jacqueline Wilson. I'll be back soon with the next part of this fantastic story, and lots more stories and videos coming your way very soon. If you'd like to subscribe or hit a like, that's always appreciated. Thanks for listening, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.